Here's the number one question that anyone who is in any shape or form involved in land gets asked all the time, and that is, how do I value a piece of land? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you 5 ways to value the land, so you'll never have to ask that question again, and you'll be looked at the expert in land valuation. Finding the value of real estate is the number one most important thing you need to do, because if you get that wrong, you end up overpaying for the property, you end up getting bad deals, you end up not being able to sell the properties, and you end up very simply being out of business or losing money. So therefore, in this video, I'm going to show you the 5 ways that you can value land step by step, and you'll never have the feeling that you over offered on any kind of deals, and instead you'll get the best deals. So let's jump right into it. So the first way to value land is really the most simple way of them all. Anytime somebody comes to me, and it happens a lot, and asks me, Jack, how do you value land? I answer the exact same way every single time. And that's like, hey, how do you value houses? Well, they say, well, very simply, I run comps. And I say, you know what? I do the exact same thing on land. Now, my wife and I and our team, we have done over 4,500 land flips, or land wholesales, better said. And in the process, we became really world-class at evaluating land, and it's not very difficult. But here's the thing, back when we started 21 years ago, there was no comparables of land online. We had to go jump through some hoops to figure out what the value of the land is. But over the last 5 to 10 years, Zillow, Trulia, LandWatch, any of these websites now provide sold land comparables. So it's really, really simple. How do you value a piece of land? You very simply look for comparable pieces of land that sold in that vicinity and in the last, 90, 120, 180 days. Here's a couple of things to consider with land. Land overall moves a little bit slower than houses. So particularly in the pricing world. Now selling, you can sell pieces of land in a matter of days, but in terms of pricing, land prices don't jump up like this, like houses sometimes do, and they also don't go down like this, like houses sometimes do. So land prices are a little bit more stable. As a result, when you look for comparable sales, you can go back a little bit further. In the house world, you typically don't want to go beyond 90 days. In the land area, it's absolutely okay to go back 6 months. And in many areas, it's even okay to look at land sales for the last full year. So that means that your selection of land is actually, as comparable, is actually larger, because you can go further back, even in an environment or even in an area where not that many sales have happened. So very simply, so how do you compare land? Let's say you want to buy, or you want to make an offer on a 5-acre piece of land 5 miles outside of a big city. Well, you pull up Zillow, you go into sold, you look into that same area, and chances are it's not the only 5-acre parcel that sits there. Chances are there's 10 other, 20 other, 100 other 5-acre parcels, and several of them have sold over the last 6 to 12 months. So right there, if you see that they're sold for 50,000, 70,000, 60,000, and so on, you compare if there's a 1 or 2 that are either sold very low, or 1 or 2 that have sold for very, very high. You can check those out. If they're sold for very, very low, they might have sold to one of our students, and therefore the price, they got them really cheap. If they're sold very, very high, there might be something to it. Either it might be multiple properties that sold together in one transaction, and Zillow didn't break it out and put a higher price on it. So you can remove those, and then you look at just kind of the ones that are like in the middle. So if you see that a bunch of properties sold for $60,000, $65,000, what's your value? $60,000 to $65,000. The second way to find the value of properties is what's called listed comparables. So that's the way Michelle and I that we had to do 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, when Zillow and those platforms did not have listed sold comparables on there. Zillow already existed. Trulia already existed. LandWatch already existed, but what you were able to find is only what stuff was listed at, not what it had sold for. So what we find out is back then is that if a property is listed for $100,000, a piece of land is listed at $100,000, and let's say there's 10 of them, they're all listed around $100,000, ultimately what they will sell is about 15% below that. So in other words, but listing value is about 15% higher than what they sell for. So if you see pieces of land that are listed for $100,000, chances are they're worth about $85,000. Right there, you got your value. And you can actually compare that today because you have the listed and the sold. You can look at if the solds have sold for $85,000, you go on Zillow, you switch over to listed, and I guarantee you the listed ones are going to be listed at around $100,000. So that's just very simply, there's method number 2. Method number 3 is you sometimes have to adjust for the size. Particularly when you're going after a land that's, let's say, a little bit larger and a little bit further away from the cities. So in that case, if you're looking at, let's say, making an offer on a 20-acre parcel, but all you find is as a comparable is a few 10-acre parcels sold and a few 40-acre parcels sold, then, well, guess what? You got to break it down to the price per acre, and you got to therefore figure out what the 20-acre property is worth. But keep one thing in mind. If you're outside of the city, the relationship of size to value is the exact opposite of land in the city. So what I mean by that is the following. If you're in a more recreational area a couple of hours away from town, a 20-acre parcel might be worth $40,000. If you go from 20 to 40 acres, the value does not necessarily double because more land does not mean more enjoyment. At some point of time, buyers are going to be like, hey, 20 acres, that's the size of 20 football fields. I'm happy with 20 football fields of land. I can roam around, I can do my stuff. An extra 20 football fields is not going to increase my enjoyment of the land by a factor of 2. It's not going to double my enjoyment of the land. So therefore, if 20 acres sold for $40,000, then 40 acres are not worth $80,000. 40 acres are more worth like $60,000. So the larger the size, the lower the price per acre in the rural areas. The exact opposite is true in the city. In the city, if you have a 1-acre parcel, it might be worth $200,000. But if you can take that 1-acre parcel and combine it with 3 other 1-acre parcels into a 4-acre kind of piece, instead of it being worth 4 times $200,000 equals $800,000, by combining it into a 4-acre piece, the value of what you can do with that land is now completely different. You can now rezone it. You can now perhaps put 100 apartment units on there. You can put an office complex on there. You can put, an assisted living facility on there. You can put a warehouse on there. And it becomes so much more valuable because the size allows so many more things to do on that property. And as a result, instead of 1 acre being worth $200,000, therefore 4 acres being worth $800,000, the value of the 4 acres might be $2 million. So keep that in mind. Larger acreage in the city, exponential growth in value. Larger acreage in the rural area means that actually it's the larger the acreage, the lower the price per acre. Very, very important. 2 completely different dynamics based on where the land is. So that complicates things a little bit, but really not, because all you need to determine, is it in the city or is it in the rural areas? With that said, if you have a 10-acre parcel that you want to make an offer on, and there's a 20 that's sold for 40 and a 40 that's sold for 60, do you apply that same principle down? So from 20, that's the 20-acre parcel that's sold for $40,000, well, guess what? The 10 is not going to be worth 20. The 10 is going to be worth a little bit more than the 20. So the 20 is going to be worth around $25,000. Because if you go from 10 acres to 20 acres, 25, doubling would be 50, but it doesn't double. It's a little bit less than double. As a result, you go from 25 to 40. That sounds like a very reasonable increase that makes sense. The fourth way to value properties is actually by using the assessed value. So the assessed value is not just a number that the county assessor pulls out of thin air. It actually has, at least in most states other than California, has a relationship to the market value. For example, Florida, in a stable market, assesses their properties at about 85% of market value. Colorado assesses their properties at about 90% of market value. Arizona assesses their properties at about 66% or 2/3 of market value. Arkansas, for example, assesses properties at around 20% of market value. So if you can figure out what is that ratio of assessed value to market value, it puts you right away into the vicinity of that market value. It's not an exact science in this case, but it gives you another indicator. So how do you find that out? Very simply, one phone call. You want to do business in a county in Texas? You simply call that appraisal district, how it's called in Texas. You call that, you talk to the appraiser and say like, hey, what does it mean if you're assessing your property for $30,000? What does that mean in terms of the property value? What percentage of market value you're assessing them at? They will tell you. And then you use that for every deal going forward as one of the criteria and one of the pointers towards your market value. Fifth, and it's my favorite one, let's talk about infill lots. In the city, think about a street, 35 houses, one empty lot. The problem with this is that if there's only one empty lot, there's no comparables. So how do you compare the value? How do you find the value if there's nothing to compare it to? The simple answer to that is you got to do what an appraiser does. And an appraiser does the following thing. In real estate, when you buy a house or when somebody buys a house, what you're buying is actually two things. You're buying the house, but you're also buying the land underneath. So in other words, there is a value that's assigned to the house and a value that's assigned to the land underneath. So, and typically in a normal American neighborhood where the house prices are, let's say, $400,000, $500,000, the land is worth about 20 to 25% of the purchase price, and the house is worth 75 to 80% of the purchase price when somebody bought a house. So in other terms, what you need to do in that moment, you switch on Zillow, you switch to include houses, and you basically say in this neighborhood, what do houses sell for? And if it turns out that houses sell for $400,000, the value for land, 20%, $80,000. Done. That's how fast it goes. And now here is the way to put it all together. If you're not sure about it, if it's just a piece of land outside of town, do a combination of them. Look up the assessed value and know the rule of thumb of what that means. If it's in Arizona, let's say, the assessed value is $66,000, well then you know that's 2/3 of the market value. It means the market value should be around $100,000. Then you go look at sold comps. Quickly on Zillow, you see, oh, properties here have sold for $100,000. You're done. What if you don't find any solds? You go for listed. The listed are listed for $115,000. You're like, hey, that's minus 15%. It's about $100,000. And the assessed value method gave me also an indication that it's about $100,000. I'm done. You do the same thing in the rural areas. You do the same thing in the infill lots. Usually by using just 2 of the 5 different methods, you're right there, got confirmation that you're right on spot with the value of your property. Now, if all of that doesn't work, you can simply use method number 6, which is call a realtor in that area and ask him to help you find out the value of that property. Now, be careful with that because some realtors are crooks. Some realtors want to go steal that property from you. They want to go contact the seller and get it as a listing or something like that. So make sure that you don't necessarily tell him what exact property it is. Instead, describe the area. Tell them it's a 5-acre parcel in this subdivision. And then also say things like, hey, I'm buying this. I have it under contract already. I'm buying this from a really good friend of mine. I just want to make sure that I got the right amount, right, that I got the right valuation. Can you help me figure out what it is worth? And by the way, Mr. Realtor, when I buy it, I'm looking to actually resell it. So if you do a good job, perhaps I'll resell it with you. Right there, he now has an incentive to work with you because if he does a good job, he'll get the listing, and it's very unlikely that he goes behind your back and steals the deal from you. Just something, a little bonus way to find the value of the property. All right, so with that said, how would you like to get as many land deals as you want from the comfort of your home? Well, if you want to do that, I have a gift for you. And that is very simply, if you go to landblueprint.com, you can download a 30-day detailed PDF blueprint showing you exactly the step-by-step method on how to find these pieces of land for 10 to 40 cents on the dollar and how to turn around them and sell them for 60 to 80 cents on the dollar and even create cash flow from land, all from the comfort of your home. Check it out right now, landblueprint.com.